Tonight, I want to ask you something. Have you ever stayed silent, even when you knew exactly what you wanted to say? Have you ever felt your heart beating fast, your hands getting cold, your mind going blank, just because people were looking at you? You knew the words. You understood everything. But when it was time to speak, something inside you stopped you. Fear. Fear of making a mistake. Fear of sounding stupid. Fear of people judging you. And because of that fear, you stayed quiet. Maybe in school, maybe in college, maybe in a meeting, maybe in front of people you wanted to impress. And later, when you were alone, you asked yourself the same painful question. Why didn't I just speak? Tonight's story is about someone exactly like that. A young man who understood everything, but was terrified to speak. For years, his fear controlled him, until one day, one moment, one decision changed everything. This is the story of a quiet college student in America who was afraid of his own voice, and how one small act of courage completely changed the way he saw himself. So take a deep breath, relax, and listen carefully. Because in this story, you might recognize a part of yourself. Tonight, I want you to imagine a quiet college classroom in America. It's early morning. Soft sunlight is coming through tall windows. Students are walking in with coffee cups in their hands. Some are laughing, some are half asleep, some are scrolling on their phones. And in the third row, near the window, there is a young man named Ethan Miller. Ethan is 20 years old, brown hair, calm face, always listening. He looks normal, nothing special, nothing dramatic. But inside his chest, there is a storm. Ethan is afraid to speak in front of people. Not because he doesn't know English, not because he is stupid, not because he has nothing to say. He is afraid because he cares too much. He cares too much about what people think. He cares too much about sounding perfect. He cares too much about making mistakes. And that fear has controlled him for years. When Ethan was younger, he used to talk a lot. In middle school, he would answer questions. He would joke with friends. He would raise his hand without thinking. But one small moment changed him. Freshman year of high school, English class. The teacher asked him to read a paragraph out loud. He stood up confidently. He started reading, and then he mispronounced one word, just one word. A few students laughed, not the whole class, just a few. But that sound, that short laugh, felt like a spotlight. He felt heat in his face. His ears started burning. He wanted the ground to open and swallow him. The teacher told the class to be quiet, but it was too late. The damage was done. That night, Ethan replayed that moment again and again in his head. The laugh, the embarrassment, the feeling of being small. And slowly, without even realizing it, he made a decision. He decided that silence was safer. If he didn't speak, he couldn't make mistakes. If he didn't make mistakes, nobody could laugh. If nobody laughed, he wouldn't feel that pain again. And so, he became quiet. Years passed. Now he was in college, University of Illinois, new campus, new faces, new opportunities, but the same fear. In his communication class, Professor Reynolds stood at the front of the room one Tuesday morning. She was confident, direct, clear voice. She wrote something on the board. Final presentation, 10 minutes, individual speech. The class reacted immediately. Some students whispered excitedly. Some looked nervous. Ethan froze. 10 minutes. Alone. In front of 30 students. His heart began to pound. Boom, boom, boom. He felt that old high school memory waking up again. Professor Reynolds said, "Choose any topic that matters to you." Any topic. That made it worse. Now he couldn't even hide behind something simple. He had to choose something meaningful, something personal. That night in his dorm room, his roommate Jake was playing video games, laughing loudly into his headset. Ethan was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He felt pressure building inside him. Jake noticed. "You good, man?" "Yeah, just tired." "It's the presentation, isn't it?" Ethan didn't answer. Jake took off his headset. "Dude, nobody cares if you mess up." "That's easy for you to say," Ethan replied quietly. Jake shrugged. "I get nervous too. I just talk anyway. I just talk anyway." That sentence stayed in Ethan's mind. The next few days were uncomfortable. He tried to think of a topic: business trends, social media, mental health, success habits. Nothing felt right. Every idea felt fake. Every idea felt like he was trying to impress people. And then one evening, he went home to visit his parents in the suburbs outside Chicago. During dinner, his mom noticed his silence. "You look stressed." "There's a speech I have to give." His dad looked up from his plate. "When I was your age, I skipped a class to avoid a speech." Ethan blinked. "You?" His dad smiled softly. "Oh yeah, I was terrified." "What changed?" "I realized the fear in my head was louder than reality." Louder than reality. That sentence echoed inside Ethan's mind. That night in his childhood bedroom, surrounded by old memories, he sat on the floor with his laptop. He stopped trying to impress people. He stopped trying to sound smart. Instead, he asked himself one honest question: what am I actually afraid of? The answer came slowly. Judgment, embarrassment, being seen. He opened a blank document. He typed a title: "The Silent Fear, Why We Don't Speak." He stared at it. His hands were slightly shaking, but for the first time the topic felt real. It felt honest. It felt like him. Over the next few days, Ethan began preparing. But preparation was not easy. Every time he practiced alone in his dorm room, his voice sounded strange to him. Too weak, too shaky. He would stop mid-sentence. He would criticize himself. "That sounded stupid." "You're going to mess this up." "You're not confident enough." Sometimes he would close his laptop and just sit in silence, doubting everything. One night, Jake walked in while Ethan was practicing. "Were you just talking to yourself?" Ethan sighed. "Practicing." "Let me hear it." "No." "Come on." Ethan hesitated. Then slowly he began speaking. "My name is Ethan, and today I want to talk about something we don't often admit." His voice trembled slightly. Jake listened quietly. When Ethan finished a few minutes later, he looked embarrassed. Jake stared at him for a second. "That was actually good." "Seriously?" "Yeah, it was real." Real. That word mattered. Not perfect, not powerful, real. The presentation day finally arrived. The classroom felt different that morning. Heavier, quieter. Students were reviewing notes. Some were whispering to themselves. Some were staring at their slides. Ethan's hands felt cold. He could feel his heartbeat in his chest. Boom, boom, boom. One by one, students presented. Some were smooth, some stumbled, some forgot words. Something interesting happened. Nobody laughed. Nobody judged out loud. Most students were too focused on their own anxiety. Ethan noticed something important. Everyone was nervous. Everyone. Finally, Professor Reynolds called his name. "Ethan!" His stomach tightened. He stood up slowly. His legs felt slightly weak. He walked to the front of the room. 30 faces looking at him. Some curious, some distracted, some supportive. He took a deep breath. "My name is Ethan." His voice was soft. He swallowed. "And today I want to talk about something I've struggled with for years." There was silence. He continued. "I used to think confidence was something you were born with." He paused. His voice trembled slightly. "But I've learned that confidence isn't something you have before you act. It's something you build after you act." As he spoke, something unexpected happened. He stopped focusing on himself. He started focusing on his message. He spoke about fear. He spoke about staying silent in classrooms. He spoke about overthinking every word. He admitted that he was afraid of being judged. The room was completely quiet. Not awkward quiet. Listening quiet. He forgot one sentence halfway through. His mind went blank. His heart raced. For 1 second, panic returned. But then he remembered something his dad said. "The fear in your head is louder than reality." He took a breath. He smiled slightly, and he continued in simpler words. Nobody laughed. Nobody reacted negatively. They were listening. Really listening. Minute after minute passed, and something inside him began to shift. He felt lighter. He felt present. He felt alive. When he finished, he said softly, "Thank you." There was a brief pause, then applause. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. He walked back to his seat. Jake leaned over and whispered, "Told you." Ethan smiled. But this smile was different. It wasn't forced. It wasn't nervous. It was relief. After class, something surprising happened. A girl from his class approached him. "Hey, I really liked your speech." "Thanks. I feel the same way sometimes." He blinked. "You do?" "Yeah, I just fake confidence." He laughed softly. Fake confidence. He realized something powerful. Many people who look confident are simply acting despite fear. Not without fear. Despite fear. That afternoon, Ethan walked across campus feeling different. The trees looked brighter. The air felt lighter. Nothing in his life had changed dramatically. He wasn't suddenly famous. He wasn't suddenly perfect. But he had done something he avoided for years. He spoke, and he survived. That night, lying in bed, he replayed the presentation in his mind. But this time, instead of replaying embarrassment, he replayed courage. Small courage. Imperfect courage. But real courage. He realized something important. The fear never completely disappears. It shrinks when you face it. It grows when you avoid it. For years, he fed his fear with silence. Now he fed his confidence with action. Over the next few weeks, he began raising his hand more often. Not every time, but more often. Sometimes his voice still shook. Sometimes he still overthought sentences afterward. But something had changed. He was no longer controlled by that old high school memory. He was building new memories. Memories of trying. Memories of speaking. Memories of surviving small mistakes. One afternoon, Professor Reynolds asked a question during class discussion. There was a short silence. Normally, Ethan would look down at his desk, but this time he raised his hand. His heart beat faster, but he spoke anyway. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but clearly enough. After class, Professor Reynolds stopped him. "I've noticed you participating more." He felt slightly embarrassed. "In a good way," she added. "Keep going. Keep going." 2 simple words. That's all growth really is. Keep going. Ethan realized something powerful about himself. He was never bad at speaking. He was just afraid of being imperfect in public. And perfection is an impossible standard. He started noticing how many people stumbled when speaking, how many people said, how many people paused to think. Nobody was perfect. They were just brave enough to continue. Months later, another presentation came. This time, the fear was still there, but it was smaller, manageable, like background noise instead of a screaming alarm. He stood up. He spoke. He finished. And each time, the fear lost a little more power. One evening, while walking alone across campus, he thought about that high school moment again. The laugh, the embarrassment, the burning ears. But now it felt distant, small, almost irrelevant. One small laugh had shaped years of silence, but one brave action had started reshaping everything. He realized something deeply important. Most of the limits in our lives are built from moments that were never meant to define us. A laugh, a mistake, an awkward pause. These are not life sentences. They are just moments. But when we replay them too many times, they become stories. And when stories repeat long enough, they feel like truth. Ethan had believed a story for years. The story that he wasn't good at speaking. The story that people would judge him. The story that silence was safer. But the truth was simpler. Silence was comfortable, not safe. Growth is uncomfortable, but powerful. If you are listening to this right now, maybe you are like Ethan. Maybe your fear is not public speaking. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's starting something new. Maybe it's expressing your feelings. Maybe it's chasing a dream. Fear feels real because your body reacts. Your heart beats faster. Your palms sweat. Your mind races. But fear is not always truth. Sometimes it's just memory. Sometimes it's just imagination. Sometimes it's just an old story repeating in your mind. The only way to rewrite that story is to act differently. Small action, small courage, small step, again and again. Ethan didn't become confident in one day. He became braver one decision at a time. And bravery is enough. Not perfection, not applause, not approval. Just bravery, one breath, one sentence, one moment. If you have been silent for too long, maybe tomorrow you raise your hand once. If you've been afraid to start, maybe tomorrow you begin imperfectly. Because confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes after action. Ethan learned that. Not from a book, not from a motivational quote, but from standing in front of 30 students with shaking hands and speaking anyway. And that small moment changed the direction of his life. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, powerfully. And maybe your moment is waiting too. All it needs is one brave decision. Tonight, when you close your eyes, ask yourself one question. What would I do if I wasn't afraid of looking imperfect? And maybe tomorrow, you try. Not perfectly, just honestly. And that is more than enough. Outro. Before we finish today's story, I want to say thank you for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed this story and you want to improve your English naturally through listening, storytelling, and real-life situations, then you are in the right place. This is Mr. USA English. Here, we learn English in a simple way. By listening, by understanding, and by thinking in English. No pressure, no complicated lessons. Just real stories, real conversations, and real English. If this story helped you, or if you enjoyed listening today, don't forget to follow and stay connected with Mr. USA English.